Pranjul Bhandari. She is Chief Economist, India and Indonesia, HSBC. Pranjul, very good to have you with us. Let's talk about economic policies first. Do you see any that you like within the political manifestos that have been revealed so far?
Yes, for sure. I think if you take a step back, then the last decade has seen many structural reforms and changes in the Indonesian economy, ranging from the omnibus law, which is going to improve the business climate, hopefully even more over the next couple of years, an infrastructure build out, which has brought down logistics cost and is one of the reasons why core inflation is low. We've had the downstreaming, as you mentioned, Indonesia capturing more of the value and not just exporting raw minerals. Our sense is that many of these policies will continue over the next 5 years. For instance, if you look at all the presidential hopefuls, almost all of them are supportive of the downstreaming strategy, and our sense is that that is something that is going to continue. And many other laws, for example, the omnibus law has now already been enshrined. So our senses benefits from that will continue to sort of see the light of the day going ahead. One other small thing which a lot of people don't notice is the fall in inflation. Now, if you look, food inflation has fallen quite a lot in the last 10 years, and even its volatility has fallen. I think this has a lot to do with infrastructure improvements in food trade, in transparency, and I think benefits of that, keeping inflation low, will continue for longer. And then if you look at processed metals exports, those have been on the rise, and that has kept a lid on the current account deficit on the trade side of things, and that provides support to the currency. So I think all in all, there have been a lot of improvements over the last decade, and going by the manifestos of many of the presidential candidates, many of these will continue over the next 5 years.
What then would be the biggest economic problems in Indonesia right now? Widening budget deficit, weakening Indonesian currency?
Well, I think to the contrary, the fiscal deficit turned out to be lower than budgeted in 2023, as in the government had a budget target of 2.3% of GDP, and it ended at about 1.7% of GDP. So I think the lid has been kept firmly on that. But, I want to make a nuanced point on this. Over the last couple of years, coming out of the pandemic, Indonesia has been an oasis of macro stability. Inflation has been low. The twin deficits, fiscal deficit, current account deficit, have been manageable. But I think what has given instead is growth recovery. Growth recovery has been, a tad bit soft. For instance, the last quarter, December data we got was 5% at a time when the economy has a potential to grow at about 5.3% or so. So our sense is that, what gave was growth to some extent in the last couple of years, and there are good reasons for that. I think the China reopening was a little somber. We had tight fiscal policy, we had tight monetary policy, but my sense is that was also the story of the last few quarters. I think over the next year, growth could actually be a bit stronger than we've seen before. Already we are seeing credit growth being faster than it has been. Credit deposit ratios are coming back to long-term average. There is a lot of FDI waiting in the sideline. Our own estimate is about $45 billion in the EV space that could come in post-elections. And if Bank Indonesia cut policy rates, then that could increase credit growth even more. So our sense is that in the next, year or so, we will see slightly higher growth than we've seen in the past year or two.
Speaking of growth, Indonesia has benefited from the commodities boom these past couple of years, a top exporter of nickel and rare earth metals. Do you see prices in the doldrums this year?
Well, different prices for different metals. We know the nickel story, but on the other hand, Indonesia is also a big exporter of coal and palm oil. Prices of that, they do come up and down, but on the whole, they have been fairly strong. Provided buffer on the current account, big earnings of dollars from there. So I think that cushion will continue for longer from coal and palm oil prices. As per the nickel story, I think the sense is that you want to just downstream further and further. You're not interested in selling, nickel ores, and even not just focus into smelter capacity, but to build more and more things, for example, EV batteries and so on and so forth. So our sense is a combination of elevated palm oil and coal prices and ambitions of further downstreaming in the whole nickel industry. That combination is a good combination that's going to benefit the economy for the next couple of years.
Pranjul, we've run out of time. Thank you for those insights. That was Pranjul Bhandari. She is Chief Economist, India, Indonesia at HSBC Bank.